You need winners? Let the Sports Advisor show you how to make money. General Manager Al DeMarco, a former sports reporter and contributor on Fox Sports, MSNBC, and Comcast Sports TV, brings over 25 years of handicapping experience to the table. CEO Steve Budin, the author of Bets, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, is the man responsible for creating the sports betting industry. Together, they are the Sports Advisors, your number one source for winners.
Can the Baltimore Ravens rebound after blowing their third lead of the season last week against the New York Giants? Do the Atlanta Falcons remain perfect in Vegas against the spread? And do the San Francisco 49ers once again come back after another miserable performance, this time on the road against Atlanta when they host the Kansas City Chiefs in what could be the marquee game this weekend? These are the questions we're going to attempt to answer for this week's show. Hi everyone, Al DeMarco here along with Steve Budin. But the first game we're going to focus on, the Detroit Lions coming off a bye, a miserable season so far for Dan Campbell's squad, especially defensively, taking on the Dallas Cowboys. And as we record this show on Wednesday morning, it looks like Dak Prescott will make his long-awaited return for the Cowboys. Steve, right now this line is baked in, I think, with the anticipation that Dak will be returning, as the Cowboys, coming off that loss to the Eagles on Sunday, are a 7-point home chalk.
Right, so do you bet on this Dallas Cowboy team that's overachieved to a 4-1 record after losing Dak and now getting him back? Or do you bet against the Dallas team that lost to a great Eagles squad, ending their pink cloud moment and ushering them back to earth? And the realization that they're a damn good team, but maybe not an elite team. And let me say this, whether you won a bunch of money on Dallas over the last 5 games or you lost a bunch betting against them, it doesn't matter. In fact, I would say that this decision has less to do with Dallas and more to do with the Lions. Since Dan Campbell took over for Detroit, the Lions have covered 7 times in games that they lost outright, making them king of the backdoor covers. And if the past, Al, was any indication of the future, this would be an easy game to pick, but it's not. And we talk about that all the time. You can't bring last week into this week when you're betting. For me, Al, it's simple. When good teams play bad teams, I either bet on the good teams or I don't bet at all. With that, I'm going to take Dallas minus the points.
You know, everybody looks at the Eagles game and they say, hey, the Eagles improved and remained undefeated. They won the game, even though they gave up a lot of points in the second half. What I take away from that game is that the Cowboys once again played great defensively, as they have all season long. The defense held the Eagles to just 268 total yards on the road, and they once again were able to run the ball effectively as well, 5.2 yards per carry against a porous Eagles defense. And today, or of course on Sunday, of course I'm speaking of, they're going to take on a Detroit Lions team that has the second worst run defense in the NFL, giving up 5.5 yards per carry. Well, the Cowboys, after that Sunday effort at Philadelphia, are now averaging 4.4 yards per carry behind Elliott and Pollard, who are pretty much splitting the carries. So when you look at this Lions team, as you said, you know, a bad team, you know, everybody was hyped up about the Lions after their Hard Knocks appearance, that Dan Campbell had turned this team around. Well, they still have the same problems. They can't stop anybody. This defense has allowed at least 27 points in every single game this season. In fact, they are dead last in the league in terms of total defense, giving up 426 plus yards a game. Dead last in the league in terms of points allowed per game at 34. Again, we're recording this on Wednesday morning. Dallas, I think, at 7 points. The defense is still going to be there. I've got to hope that with Prescott back, that the offense is a little better than it was with Cooper Rush. I would go ahead and lay the Dallas Cowboys, lay the points with the Dallas Cowboys as well. And of course, that number at 7, I'm going to buy down on the favorite here, whether it's 7 or 7.5, and go with the Pokes at home. Remember, as we always like to tell you, if you happen to be watching here online, you can see the little scroll at the bottom of your screen. Make sure you check out the one-day free all-access pass over at thesportsadvisors.com, because you can get all the plays of all the handicappers 1 day for free. No questions asked, no strings attached, no hassles, no obligation. Steve, we've been doing this for over 21 years, and it's absolutely unparalleled in the industry and the best bet that you can possibly get, because again, it's that one 4-letter word, which is actually a good one that starts with the F. It's free.
Yeah, that's right, and we do it. No one else does. We let you come over to the race car. We open up the and show you the engine, show you what's going on, how everything works. And no one else does it because really no one else can. We do it because we know at the end of the day, if we show you exactly what paid customers are getting, you're going to like it and you're going to come back and become a customer. It's worked for 20 years. It continues to work. We continue to offer it, and we pick up new guys every week that ordinarily would be a little hesitant, in buying picks, but since they can get it for free, what do they have to lose? Absolutely nothing. They get the picks, they love it, they come back. That's how it all works.
Listen, guys, the regular price is either $99 or $109, depending on the day. You get it for free. If you were to buy the individual picks of all the handicappers, it would cost you well over $1,000. You get it for free, and you can make the choice of which day you want to get the picks. If you don't want them on Sunday, you can get them on Saturday. The choice is yours, depending on the day. Sometimes you also get a bonus day as well. You'll get all the details when you check out the one-day free all-access pass over at thesportsadvisors.com. As I always like to say, the only way you lose is if you don't take advantage of this absolutely free offer. The Cincinnati Bengals are at home. They got the job done against New Orleans last week on the road to even their record at 3-3. They're taking on the surprising Atlanta Falcons, a team that you've been riding all season long. Falcons improved to a perfect 6-0 against the spread with their win, and even their record at 3-3 with their victory and their upset win against the San Francisco 49ers last week at home. The Bengals are a 6-point choice at home in this one. Steve, are you going to ride the Falcons one more time here?
Well, truth be told, Al, I didn't see the 28-14 upset coming for the Falcons last week, but Marcus Mariota put on a show. So now the Falcons are 6-0 versus the spread. And when are gamblers going to finally catch on? Probably never. Cincinnati had a strong finish last week, but if the Bengals were an old folktale, they'd be Rip Van Winkle, because if I'm being honest, the Bengals have been asleep at the wheel this entire season. They just don't impress me, Al. Take away their fourth quarter effort last week, and they were that same sleepy team they've been all year long. 2 good drives isn't enough to change my mind. I'm going to continue to ride Atlanta until they give me a reason not to. Atlanta plus the points.
Yeah, but here's the thing with Marcus Mariota, okay? So last week, he completes his first 13 passes. His last one is incomplete. So 13 for 14, 2 touchdowns, 6 carries, 50 yards, and a touchdown on the ground. But let's remember, this is the same Marcus Mariota. Yeah, the 2 weeks prior, 47.7% completion ratio, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, sacked 6 times, and 2 fumbles. So there's the good 1 week and the bad the 2 prior weeks. And there's a reason why he lost the starting job in Tennessee, and he's with Atlanta anyway. He's not a proven commodity. And I'll say this, now you and I are not the only people that know the Falcons are 6-0 against the spread, so now we'll have the bandwagon jumpers. And They'll come on board and say, oh my God, we're getting 6 at Cincinnati. Bengals are 3-3. We got to take the Falcons. You alluded to it earlier. Past does not indicate what the future is going to pay off, especially when it comes to gambling. I will say this about the Bengals. I think that there has been a change. Well, there's definitely been a change, and their head coach, Zach Taylor, has even acknowledged it, in their offensive philosophy. Last week, the 30-26 win, which came after the last-minute loss 19-7 at Baltimore, they have gone to a shotgun-centric formation, all but 2 snaps last week at New Orleans. And what that has done is that it's basically returned Joe Burrow to the offense that he played so successfully at LSU. And what has happened in Cincinnati, and usually I don't get real technical when we do these shows, but listen, my God, I was a reporter for 10 years. I've watched football all my life. I kind of know these things, but, sometimes you got to break it down more than just the ATS numbers and just these little things we talk about. But what has happened is you saw early in the year that the offensive line couldn't provide any protection for Burrow. He was struggling reading blitzes, struggling reading defenses, struggling getting the ball out, and the Bengals couldn't run the ball either. through the first 4 games. A couple of weeks ago, they started going more to the shotgun instead of having Burrow under center. And last week, they made the total commitment. Consequently, Burrow had his best game of the season, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, with those sharp passes, more of a short passing game. Also opened up the running lanes for Joe Mixon, who had his best game of the year. And this is a guy who ran for over 1,200 yards last year. He had 5.6 yards per carry. I think they are going to continue with that. And I don't know if the Falcons defense is going to be able to counteract that. Now, the downside is the Bengals defense, which has been so stout all season long, a lot of injuries last week. They already were banged up along the defensive line. They suffered a couple more injuries. They also lost middle linebacker Logan Wilson in that game. I don't know as of Wednesday morning whether he's going to be available. They gave up 228 yards rushing to the Saints in that contest. So, Atlanta averages 4.9 yards per carry on the ground. That's one of the top teams in the NFL. I'm still going to go with Cincinnati here. I'm going to lay the points because I think the Bengals are due for that big offensive explosion. We've been waiting to see that happen, and I think the Falcons have been on an amazing run, but all good things come to an end, especially in Vegas and when it comes to gambling. So I'm going to go the opposite way. And that brings us to an interesting game. The Baltimore Ravens, for the 3rd time this season, blew a big lead. I mean, they had the 2 collapses at home, the epic collapse against the Miami Dolphins in the 4th quarter. They blew the 17-point lead against Buffalo. Those games were at home, but last week they coughed up a 10-point lead on the road against Big Blue, and the Giants came back, beat them 24-20. Now they're back home again, laying 6.5 points against Cleveland. And I've got nothing good to say about the Browns, Steve.
Yeah, well, the Browns, they remind me of that movie series Jaws from back in the 80s. And at what point do you just stop going in the water? Here's a hint. Al, sharks can't kill you on the land. End of movie. If you don't bet on Cleveland, you can't get hurt. The Browns are 2-4 straight up and against the spread. And guys, let's face it, they stink. Baltimore, not as great as I thought they would be, but they're a solid team nonetheless. I mean, there's a difference between a good team that plays bad a couple of times and a bad team that plays bad all the time. Baltimore owns the Browns. They've covered 5 straight times. It's not going to be any different this time. I'll take Baltimore minus the points.
Now, playing devil's advocate after I badmouthed the Ravens for those collapses, I will say they had a balanced offensive attack in that game against the Giants last week on the road. Of their 406 yards total, they had 195 passing, 211 on the ground. Problem is they only went 4 for 10 on 3rd and 4th downs. The defense for the 2nd straight week, after holding the Bengals in check, held the Giants in check, only 238 total yards. The Ravens shot themselves collectively in the foot, though. 10 for 74 with penalties, 2 costly turnovers by Lamar Jackson. That's what cost them the loss. And you're right. I mean, you look at what the Browns did last week. Oh, my God, that 3rd straight loss. They were pulverized at home by the Patriots, 38-15, playing the 3rd-string quarterback, the rookie Bailey Zappi, who threw for 309 yards and 2 touchdowns. And now you've got Lamar Jackson looking for a little bit of a redemption game. Love Baltimore here because this Browns team has been an underachiever all season long. So I'm going to go with you and go with the Ravens here and lay the points. And again, 6.5, 7. I'm buying down the half point in this situation as well. Before we get to the next game, which is without a doubt the Who Cares game of the week as far as I'm concerned, remember, guys, subscribe to the channel. You see the little button down there in the corner. Subscribe now so you can always be alerted when Steve and I have the weekly edition of the NFL pregame show and for the college football pregame show that I do along with Rick Torino, who happens to be the hottest handicapper at thesportsadvisors.com. He's only won 6 straight best bets on Saturday, including his biggest play of the year last week, that little upset with Tennessee shocking Alabama. So subscribe now. Just click on the little red thing down in the corner. It's that easy. Okay, Steve, the Who Cares game of the week. It's the Las Vegas Raiders at home, -7 against Houston, a battle of 1-win teams. I don't think this is what the Raiders expected when they hired Josh McDaniels, when they gave the big bucks to Devontae Adams. Both teams coming off byes. The Raiders idle since that 1-point Monday night loss to Kansas City when they blew the 17-0 lead. At Arrowhead, the Jaguars idle since earning their first win of the season, 13-6 at Jacksonville in that barn burner of a game. Just, my God, it had me on the edge of my seat a couple of Sundays ago. I will throw this lousy game in your lap first.
Yeah, and by the way, I will be in Vegas this weekend, heading out there today, coming back next week. And here's a little hint, Al. I won't be going to the Raiders game, and I won't be going to see Michael Jackson 1 either, because the Raiders are the quintessential Las Vegas story. Like every show in that town, they're overhyped, they're under-delivering. You wind up just going to the buffet instead. They've lost 4 out of their last 5 straight up. Lots of finger-pointing going on the team. Some Vegas fans are wondering maybe this organization is just cursed. And when we look at Houston, they're like the opposite. Low expectations, better than we thought they would be, especially for gamblers. They've only lost 1 point spread decision so far this season. The Raiders 3-7 the last 10 as a home chalk. So do you have the balls to bet on Houston here? I do. Give me the Texans plus the points.
You know, the Raiders last in red zone defense. The opponents have scored 14 touchdowns in 17 trips. They're 28th in points allowed, giving up 26 a game. They're tied for last in takeaways with just 3 takeaways in 5 games this season. There are 8 sacks, despite going out and getting Chandler Jones, who's been a colossal disappointment. That's the second fewest in the leagues, and they're 25th in pass defense. They're giving up more yards this year, 256 than the 223 they gave up last year when they sucked. And they've lost cornerback Nate Hobbs to a hand injury. He was hurt in the Kansas City game. All that being said, I still am going to go with the Raiders because I think the Texans are even worse because this team has shown me nothing, and Davis Mills, I've never liked him. And I think that this offense, the Raiders offense, despite being ranked only 22nd in TD percentage once they reach the end zone, they're still averaging 25 points a game. And sooner or later, Derek Carr is going to find somebody other than Devontae Adams, because Hunter Renfrow has been a disappointment. Darren Waller, just like the big contract they gave him, has been a disappointment. Other than Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs, who's off to a hell of a good year, averaging almost 100 yards a game and 5.4 yards a carry, they're going to mesh. And I think coming out of the bye with a very easy schedule, because their next 9 opponents, they all have losing records. This is a key game for them because this could fuel a second half resurgence here for Las Vegas. You know, I look at the Raiders, it's like the coulda, shoulda, woulda team. I mean, could have been 2-3, probably should have been 3-2, would have been 4-1 if they didn't blow all those damn leads. So I'm going to give Vegas a shot. You know, it's like being at the craps table. You got to give it a shot every now and then. And in the Who Cares game of the week, I'm going to go with Las Vegas here. But yeah, you couldn't pay me to bet this game. You couldn't pay me to watch this game. Next game, however, that's a totally different story. Kansas City coming off the loss against a team, San Francisco, that, you know, you look at how that game played out against Atlanta last week, and you can't be surprised that they lost the game, considering that Jimmy G had 2 interceptions and there was a costly fumble by Jeff Wilson, and they were playing the second game in a row on the East Coast. But I am shocked that the Chiefs are only a 3-point favorite in this contest.
Yeah, and when I look at the numbers, Al, the one that stands out like Lizzie in a swimsuit is the number of sideline starters for San Francisco. That's equivalent to a plus-size 11, with 7 of those on the defensive side. Some of those injured defenders may return. We'll have to see how effective they can be. Now, the Jekyll and Hyde Chiefs were also dealing with a bunch of their own injuries in their secondary. They're going to get a few players back. That's certainly going to help. But Patrick Mahomes, to me, was missing that magic last week when in the loss to the Bills. When it comes to gamblers, KC is about as popular as Vanilla Ice these days. They've only covered 4 out of their last 11. And look, it's scary to bet against Kansas City. I don't like doing it. But if you've consistently done that, you're up big so far. So not this time for me. I'm still scared. I'm still going to bet KC minus the points.
Yes, you took KC last week. I took Buffalo. It was close, but I prevailed in that one. But listen, before I talk more about this game, I am lost. I missed the pop culture reference. Who is Lizzie in a swimsuit?
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you should look it up. There's no nice way for me to describe her. Let's just say she's large and in charge.
I know who you're talking about now. Okay, I think you got the name wrong, but I got it now, and everybody out there is going to be wondering who the hell we're talking about. But probably being politically correct, we should move forward. You are 100% right. Do you know San Francisco at the end of that game, at the end of that loss to Atlanta, the 49ers were missing 11 of their 22 Week 1 starters because of injury. 11. That's half. Half of their starting lineup was gone from Week 1 at the end of that loss last week against Atlanta. And I can't tell you here as of Wednesday morning who the hell's going to be available to play. You just can't absorb that type of injuries. And I'll tell you, that has been the theme with the 49ers the past 3 seasons. They are a snake-bitten team. They might as well fly the Red Cross flag over the stadium because you just don't know who's going to be available on a week-to-week basis. I am all in with you on Kansas City. I was very concerned that the 49ers defense, again, because of the injuries, gave up 168 yards rushing to the Falcons in that one. I'm going to go with Kansas City, and that's all I've got to say because that's really all I need to say. We go to the final game. The Chargers, 4-2, which probably surprises a lot of people, considering that they played a pretty decent lineup of opponents to start the season. After that insomnia-producing 19-16 overtime win on Monday night against Denver, I'm proud to say that I did not waste 3.5 hours of my life watching that contest against the really surprising Seattle Seahawks, who even their record at 3-3 with their best defensive performance of the season with a 19-7 win at home against a really bad Arizona team. Chargers a 6.5-point favorite. I got to say, Steve, Geno Smith has really played well at a bargain basement price for Seattle.
Yeah, and sometimes the NFL is full of surprises. I mean, the Seahawks are tied for first in the NFC West and leading the division in points scored. If I would have said that going into Week 3, you would have had a drug test me. I mean, don't look now. Geno Smith completing 75% of his passes. He's got a 9-2 touchdown to interception ratio. Is that hard to believe? It is, and I think gamblers aren't buying it, and that's why we have an opportunity to grab all these points here. I think that is a value. I'm going to grab those points here, and I hate to say it, I'm going to bet the Seahawks.
You know, as I always say and during these shows, we pick the games that we're going to talk about. We never discuss the games in advance, so this is the first time we've interacted about these contests. I thought the same exact way you do. I think this is a great price because people didn't expect much from Geno Smith and the Seahawks this season. I've been pleasantly surprised. I've been shocked at how good Geno Smith has played this season. I mean, as you pointed out, I mean, the guy leads the league in completion percentage. He's averaging 261 yards a game. He's played so well that they're thinking about contract extension for this guy. They have suffered some injuries at running back, but Kenneth Walker III, the rookie out of Michigan State, is now their lead back after Penny broke his leg a couple of weeks ago. That hurts them a little, but they're still getting good offensive production. And the Chargers are a one-dimensional team. They can throw the ball. They're unable to run for the second straight season. And I think it's 6.5 points, especially when you've got a team coming off a short week of preparation. I think that you go with Seattle. I do believe this is going to be a high-scoring game as well because neither of these teams are very good defensively. I pointed out that Seattle is coming off their best defensive performance last week against Arizona, 19-9, held the Cardinals to 315 total yards. But I think that's more of a byproduct of the Cardinals being bad offensively because that defense had allowed at least 27 points in their previous 4 games. In fact, in their 2 previous games before taking on Arizona, they gave up 45 and 39 points and a total of nearly 1,000 total yards. So I'm with you. I'm going to go with the Seahawks here and grab the points. Again, not a play I'd probably put money on, but then again, not a bad play either. So that wraps up this week's show. And again, Steve, I think that if you're not taking advantage of the one-day free all-access pass, where we're basically telling you to take all the plays of all the handicappers for free on our dime, you got to be crazy.
Yeah, and it was Lizzo, not Lizzie, Al. The only one that looked worse than her in a bathing suit was my high school girlfriend, but I don't want to digress and go into that. The one day all access pass, best offer in town. No other handicapping company has ever done it. No other handicapping company ever will do it because they all share the same handicappers. So there's no value when you go to another handicapping company. You get the same guys and sometimes even get different picks at different price points, leaving you say, WTF, what's going on here? You know, with our guys, they work for us. They work for us exclusively. That means we can offer them at any price point we want, even free. And that's what we do with the one-day all-access pass. It's a proven method to get people in the door and let them see what paying customers see, and then they can make their own decisions whether they want to reach their hand into their pocket or not.
Right, and what Steve was referring to is that in this industry, the prevalent the thing that really is most prevalent, I should say it this way, is that most handicappers, you will find multiple picks at multiple sites because they work on a commission basis. You'll find a guy that has his gold play at one site, a silver play at another site, his double platinum lock of the year at a third site, all different price points, multiple different plays because they all work on a commission basis. As opposed to us, every handicapper at our site works for us exclusively. Those other guys, those other sites, they're really not into worrying about selling picks. They're really working as a lead generator to bring you customers in to solicit their sports books, which, hey, that's their business MO. That's fine and dandy. But when you come to our site, we have one purpose in mind: to make you money. And that's what our handicappers try to do every single day. And Steve, I always say nobody wins every day. And anybody that claims to win every day, they're frauds, they're charlatans, they're snake oil salespersons. When they tell you they're going to win every day, they're also, just selling you the moon, the stars, and everything else. But over the long haul, the majority of our handicappers will make you money over the long haul, whether that's a season, over a month, whatever. And by using the one-day all-access pass, that gives you a taste of the different styles of our handicappers, because you not only get the pick, but you get all the in-depth analysis as well.
And as someone from Vegas who made his bones working in Vegas, I worked at Caesars in my 20s, created the offshore sports betting business. I know a little bit about sports betting. Whether you're a wise guy involved in a syndicate or a normal gambler or just someone with a great opinion or someone with a bad opinion, at the end of the year, you're probably going 50-50. Where the rubber meets the road is not in your percentage of wins, is are you able to allocate more funds for the games that you win than the games that you lose? Are you tapped into your opinion enough to be able to properly rate a game? And when customers come to our site, they don't just get a pick from a handicapper. They get a rating that goes along with that. And that's where the significance of that rating is going to be the determining factor at the end of the season on whether you're carrying a positive bankroll or not. Don't show me the guy who's got the best record. Show me the guy who's got the best bankroll. That's the guy I want to follow.
Guys always will say to me over my 25 plus years in this industry, well, what's your record? What's your winning percentage? Absolutely meaningless, inconsequential. Right. When I see other sites touting a guy's winning percentage, his win-loss record, I go, oh, you're into marketing. You're not really into showing the truth in the matter. You will go to our site at thesportsadvisors.com. You will see guys that have won $10 bettors, X number of $1,000 over the last 37 days. That is because every play is rated, and then we break it down for if you would bet so many dollars per unit, what you would have netted, meaning wins minus losses minus the big over a certain period. In essence, and this is what Steve was just trying to say, and I know this is going to be hard for a lot of you to grasp, you could have a losing straight-up record, and you could have a huge bankroll because the plays are rated, and it all comes down to the allocation of your bankroll, weighing it and playing it according to how the handicappers are releasing their plays. Now, that takes discipline, but that's what you're using professional advice for. It's no different than looking at us as financial advisors. You have to put your faith into your handicapper and understand that they're giving you professional advice, and you have to follow it. A lot of guys aren't willing to do it. A lot of guys don't have patience, Steve, as we know. It's just something, I can preach, but sometimes you're just preaching to the choir.
Absolutely. I mean, if gamblers had discretion, they wouldn't be called gamblers.
True, and there are no guarantees in gambling. That's my golden rule.
Right.
Hey, listen, guys, that'll do it for this week's show. For Steve Budin, I am Al DeMarco, and we will catch you next week here on thesportsadvisors.com.